Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to speak about science and nature. In this case, it's devoted today's lesson is about greening the desert. What do you think? In history, the historic Earth was the desert or a greening place. Just for today, we will have the so many facts, evidence which is related to deserts and their history. Welcome to today's lesson. Pay attention to this. Firstly, for greening desert, there should be so many facilities. What are they? The first thing is you know that it is water. Water is base of life, base of greening, base or face of being existed lively. And while speaking about facilities, there should be not only water, there should be some nutrition, soils, water, and atmosphere, and condition, and etc. And pay attention to the next. If we speak about greening the desert, it means we should change the ecosystem from desert to greening place. The first steps can be related to planting trees in the desert. What kind of trees, what kind of project do you know about planting trees in the desert? We know all over the world there are so many international programs and so many organizations which are related to greening the desert or planting the trees in the desert. Firstly, pay attention to this. And it is some Chinese companies which are related to planting the desert, and they have a program about changing the ecosystem or changing the desert into greening place. Firstly, breathable anticipation material characteristics can make plant roots 360 Celsius breathable and water and fertilizer. And it is the first method of planting trees in the desert. We have, while preparing or a preparation of the lesson, we had introduced so many programs. One of the main important program in the world, which is considered the Chinese program. It's about greening the desert or planting the trees in the desert and changing the ecosystem, improving the ecosystem in the desert, for example, giving life to the dead zone. And the second, breathable anticipation and advantages can significantly improve the greenhouse crop production facilities. The use of breathable anti-abrasive material. In this case, they recommended to the world some other breathable material for changing the desert into greening place. The next step is about greening the desert cultivation, desert farming technology, or rich sand. Rich sand, it means desert farming technology. All the process are belong to this technology. Pay attention, desert cultivation. It means to work on the earth, on the ground of the desert to change the statement of soil or ground, including or soil including in the desert farming technology. In some cases, in some situation positions, the many countries come to these problems, to these matters, that It has so many facilities, technologies, rich sand, or we can call farming technology. Desert farming technology, looking for desert cultivation or desert rice planting methods, you can enter from social media and find any kind of ways, any kind of opportunities about changing the place, changing the statement in the desert into, for example, good condition into, for example, life condition in the dead zone in the desert. We are smart in developing waterproof and breathable high-tech materials. And you know that the first is, for example, desert cultivation. The second can be desert farming technology and the rich sun. And pay attention, the first thing is about creating some water reservation in the desert, and it can be some base for making, for investigating for creating life in the dead zone or desert. And we can call this process desert cultivation, desert farming technology, or rich sun in any cases, and in all programs all over the world on, for example, changing the desert into a greening place. We can face some challenge, some difficulties. For example, difficulty in the project. It is about one of the project which is devoted, which is specialized for greening the desert. We want to share some challenge of theirs in planting trees in the desert, or in changing the statements or difficulties, or changing the life of the desert into planning or into greening the place. Difficulty in the project. Planting rice in the harsh desert is an almost impossible thing to do. The difficulty of the desert cultivation is how to prevent leakage and anti-evaporation. There should be all the rules, all the stage, all the process of nature. For example, water evaporation or cultivation or some farming process, so on. Core technology, breathable anti-space technology, breathable anti-space sand, it means. We can call to bring some nutritional sand to the desert and to change the surface of the, for example, desert sands into anticipate sand, breathable anticipate sand. After, for example, gathering and harvesting all the planting, there will be some changes. It is so risky things also. And the next, desert cultivation, desert farming technology, rich sand, breathable anticipate sand is waterproof, breathable high-tech material. It's one of the, for example, some hope for greening the desert rice planting method. Just in the picture, you can see how can the members of the projects and the world decide to plant the rice even in the desert. The first step, the machine ditch. It means using the technology of the era for implementing the modern technology for changing the desert life into greening place. The second step is shop breathable anticipate sand. It means to change surface of the, for example, desert sand into anticipate breathable sand. And the next is some general information about greening the desert. Desert greening somehow In some cases, it's considered the process of man-made reclamation of desert for ecological reasons, for example, biodiversity, or farming, or and forestry. It can be affectable for all these aspects of the nature, but also for reclamation of natural water systems and other ecological systems that support life. The term desert greening is intended to apply to both cold and hot, arid and semi-arid deserts. Köppen climate classification system, they are characterized. It does not apply to ice-capped or permafrost regions. Desert greening has the potential to help solve global water, energy, or food crises. It pertains to roughly 32 million square kilometers of land. It is about general information about greening the desert and managed intensive rotational grazing. You know that in the world there are so many methods, so many steps, so many ways of greening the desert. Some of them which is belong to some fields. For example, there should be technology, there should be agriculture. It's about cultivation and desert cultivation and desert technology, or desert can be called, for example, farming. In agriculture, rotational grazing as opposite to continuous grazing describes many systems of pasturing, whereby livestock are moved to a portion of, for example, pasture, called paddocks, while other portion rest. Each paddock must be provide all needs of livestock, such as food, water, and sometimes shade and shelter. The approach often produces lower outputs and more intensive animal farming operations, but requires lower inputs and therefore sometimes produces higher net farm income per animal. Pay attention, when we manage to, for example, green the desert, there should be some aspects or some factors of the life: water, shade, shelter. Without them, it can be so challenging or also difficult for human being. As the next ways of greening the desert and the challenge of greening the desert, ecoscaping. Ecoscaping, it is integrators or can be called as integrating the disciplines of landscape agriculture and spatial planning with environmental science, and provides an innovative approach in creating a sustainable and nature-friendly design or construction. Every piece of land, is unique and offer different materials and micro environments. As ecoscaping aims to design in harmony with the land and create environmentally healthy and as a sustainable landscape. Ecoscaping also strives to take an existing structures and area, for example, backyards, cities, campuses, and etc., and add ecological balance and greenery. The ecoscaping prides itself on taking a holistic approach to sustainable land use management. Ecoscaping, it means to involve all these, for example, factors of greening the desert. What about permaculture? Permaculture is also considered one of the main things, main items of greening the desert. Permaculture is an approach to land management and philosophy arrangement observed in flourishing natural ecosystem. It includes scientific principles derived whole system thinking. It uses these principles in fields such as regenerative agriculture, rewilding, or community resilience. Permaculture originally came from permanent agriculture, but also later adjusted to mean permanent culture, incorporating social aspects as monocultures as a natural farming. The term was coined by Bill Millions and David Holmgreen in 1978, who formulated the concept in opposition to Western industrialized methods and in congruence with indigenous and traditional knowledge. Permaculture has many branches, including ecological design, ecological engineering, regenerative design, environmental design, and construction. It also includes integrated water resource management and developed sustainable agriculture and regenerative and semi-maintenance habitat and agricultural system modeled from natural ecosystem. Permaculture has been implemented and gained widespread visibility throughout the world as an agricultural architectural design system as a guiding life principle or philosophy. Much of its success has been attributed the role of indigenous knowledge and tradition in greening the desert, in which the practice itself rooted. We know that in every field of greening the desert, we can face permaculture. Permaculture can be conducted by human beings. Pay attention to the picture. In this case, they are given the handmade culture. It is about permaculture of human being, about greening the desert. The next is tree planting. It is also considered one of the main methods in greening the desert. Tree planting is a process of transplanting tree seeds, generally for forested land reclamation or landscape purpose. It differs from transplantation of, for example, larger trees in agriculture from lower cost but slower, less reliable division tree seeds. And in silviculture, the activity is known reforestation, afforestation, they are the process of tree planting. And for example, when we plant some trees in the desert, they can be adjusted or adapted to the scent of this place or not. We should pay attention to the statement of the ground. In any case, there should be forest signs, forest harvested or damaged by the fire. For example, if it is belong to forest, all trees can be damaged by fire or can be, for example, harvested in at the end of the year for example, wood industry and planted old growth forests that can be, for example, caused by firing, by damaging all the natural resource. And there are so many factors about tree planting process in greening the desert. And the next factors in greening the desert as seawater greenhouse is the greenhouse structure that endures growth of crops and the production of fresh water in arid regions, which constitute about 1/3 of the Earth's land area. This in response to the global water scarcity and peak water and salt infecting soil. The system uses seawater and solar energy. It uses a similar structure to the head and fan greenhouse, but with additional evaporators and condensers. Seawater is pumped into the greenhouse to create a cool, humid environment, the optimal condition for cultivation of the temperature crops. The fresh water is produced in condensate state created by solar desalination principle, which removes salt and impurities. Finally, remaining humidified air is expelled from the greenhouse and used to improve the growing conditions for outdoor plants. And these were about greenhouse factors method. In the world, we know human being can create all the desert into greening place, into, for example, a so beautiful place. We should conserve our earth from drying, and we can, for example, change the desert life into greening, beautiful life. Thank you for your attention. For the next time, see you.